Okay, so we're diving deep today into Canadian politics, and things are getting weird.
Weird is putting it mildly.
Right, like you sent me this article from the National Post,
Uh-huh.
and it's satire, right? But, sometimes satire hits a little too close to home.
Oh, absolutely. This one is a bit unnerving
Yeah, and like the whole premise is the Liberal Party is basically freaking out.
because the polls are right.
Abysmal. I mean, there was that Angus Reid poll. They're predicting, what, a 6-seat caucus for the Liberals.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? They've been in power for so long.
I know. So this article, it's like, okay, if you're the Liberals and you're staring down the barrel of this, like, historic defeat, what do you do?
And the answers they come up with, well,
Bonkers. I mean, they're absolutely bonkers.
it's like a political thriller, you
Yeah.
know? But written by someone who's like mainlining caffeine and absurdity.
Exactly. So let's break down some of these strategies, shall we? Because strategy might be a generous term.
Oh yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so first up, we have "It was all a dream."
Now that's a classic.
Right. So the idea here is the Liberals somehow convince voters that everything before, like 2015, that was the dream.
The good old days, right, when everything was perfect.
Exactly. Even though, things weren't actually perfect.
Yeah.
Like, at all.
It's nostalgia weaponized.
Right. They're basically saying, hey, remember that time when everything was amazing? Well, vote for us, and we'll go back to that somehow.
And it's funny because nostalgia is a powerful force in politics. People do crave that sense of comfort, of familiarity.
It's like make Canada, I don't know, like sepia-toned again.
Something like that, yeah.
But, okay, moving on to something even more out there. The being John Malkovich strategy.
Now that one's a mouthful.
I know. Okay, so you ready for this? The Liberals blame all their, problems, all their decisions on, wait for it, Chinese mind control.
You can't make this stuff up.
I swear I'm not. The article literally suggests that they say Trudeau was, secretly being manipulated by the Chinese government.
Yeah. As if he was some kind of Manchurian candidate.
Exactly. And now he's, broken free, and he's ready to lead Canada to, I don't know, true freedom or something.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous, but it does make you think about the whole scapegoating thing in politics, right? When things go bad, it's always easier to point the finger at someone else.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially some, shadowy foreign power. It's a tale as old as time.
And look, we all know that international relations are complicated. There are all sorts of factors at play, but this strategy is basically reducing it to, a bad kung fu movie plot.
Oh, totally. Okay, ready for the next one? The opposite.
Hit me with it.
All right, so this one is pure chaos. They propose reversing, every single policy.
Wiggle one.
Every single one. They'll embrace fiscal conservatism. They'll make, deliberately provocative statements about, well, everything, just to shock people into voting for them.
It's like they're trying to break the system.
Right. It's like they're saying, look, nothing we're doing is working, so let's just, hit the self-destruct button and see what happens.
It's almost nihilistic, isn't it? Like they're acknowledging that voters are so disillusioned, so fed up, that they might actually fall for anything.
It's like the political equivalent of that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other.
You mean the one where they're all dressed as Spider-Man?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. Because the next strategy, it actually ties into some real-world conspiracy theories.
Oh, this should be good.
Okay, so they suggest blaming everything, and I mean everything, on the World Economic Forum, the WEF.
Ah, yes. The WEF. Always a popular target.
Right. So the idea is the Liberals will claim they, misinterpreted the WEF's instructions, and that's why everything went wrong.
As if the WEF is some kind of all-powerful puppet master.
Exactly. And, it's funny because the WEF does have this, mysterious aura around it. There's this group of, global elites meeting in Davos every year talking about, the future of the world.
And that can be a bit unnerving for some people, right? It feels very exclusive. Like, who are these people and what are they really up to?
Exactly. And that feeds into this broader distrust of global institutions. There's this fear that unelected elites are, calling the shots.
Yeah.
That democracy is just a facade.
And that's a dangerous line of thinking because it can lead to, well, a lot of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
The WEF is not some evil cabal, right? They're just a group of people trying to, solve global problems.
And they're an organization that facilitates discussion.
Right. But this article, it's playing on that fear, that suspicion. And it's a reminder that, we have to be careful about the information we consume.
Mm,
especially when it comes to something as complex as, like, global economics.
absolutely. Critical thinking is more important than ever.
Okay, so we've talked about, like, blaming the past, blaming foreign powers, blaming shadowy organizations. But what about Trudeau himself?
Well, the article doesn't let him off the hook.
Oh, not at all. They have a couple of strategies aimed specifically at his image.
His persona.
Right. So one of them is, like, shockingly simple. They suggest he just starts talking normally.
Just be himself.
Yeah. Like, ditch the carefully crafted persona, the eloquent speeches, and just, like, be a regular dude.
Which is interesting, right? Because it suggests that maybe voters are tired of that whole, like, polished, overly rehearsed style of political communication.
Maybe they want something more authentic, even if it's a little rough around the edges.
Maybe. It's certainly a gamble.
Oh, totally. And then there's the Kamala option, which, well, it's a bit brutal.
I can imagine.
Okay, so remember how Kamala Harris sometimes struggled with speaking clearly, with staying on message?
Vaguely.
Right. So this strategy suggests that the Liberals replace Trudeau with someone who's, well, equally inarticulate,
The idea being that.
that voters will feel sorry for them, that they'll seem more relatable. I don't know. It's truly bizarre.
But again, it does make you think about the role of personality in politics. Is it enough to have good policies, or do you also need to be like a charismatic speaker, someone who can connect with people on an emotional level?
Right. It's like, are we voting for a leader or a spokesperson?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, but buckle up, because the final strategy is, well, it's a doozy. It's called Gitterdämmerung.
That sounds ominous.
It is. So for those of you who aren't, like, opera buffs, Götterdämmerung is German for Twilight of the Gods.
From Norse mythology.
Yeah, and it basically means the end of the world, like the apocalypse.
So not exactly a cheerful campaign slogan.
Nope. And honestly, it's not even really a strategy. It's more like a surrender to despair, like giving up completely.
Recognition of defeat.
Right. It's like they're saying, look, the Canadian electorate is beyond saving. Let's just embrace the inevitable downfall.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how this article goes from, like, delusional optimism to complete nihilism?
It's a wild ride.
And that's the power of satire, right? It can hold up this, like, distorted mirror to reality and force us to confront uncomfortable truths.
About ourselves, about our leaders, about the whole system.
Right.
So I guess the question for you, dear listener, is this. What do you see in this mirror? Do these strategies, as absurd as they are, reveal something about how we view Canadian politics,
Yeah.
about what we expect from our leaders? Are we on the brink of Götterdämmerung? Or is this just a very clever way of pointing out the absurdity of it all?
Something to think about, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Something to think about, especially as we head into what could be a very interesting election year.
Indeed.
Okay, until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and try not to let the political satire hit too close to home.
And keep your sense of humor handy. You're going to need it.
Absolutely.